Welcome to this week's edition of the Pete Mezzetti Show. I'm Pete Mezzetti. It's actually Town of Old Saybrook night tonight on the Pete Mezzetti Show, and we're going to talk about the Board of Education, and we're going to talk about schools. We're going to talk about everything over the next half hour. With me to discuss what's going on is Superintendent Jan Peruccio. Jan, welcome. How are you?
I'm great, Pete. How are you?
Good to see you again.
Yeah,
and Jan, you actually brought a friend with us tonight.
I did.
Who is our friend?
This is Dr. Krista Bachman. She is the principal at Old Saybrook Middle School, and she's been there for
7th year.
7 years.
Wow.
This is our 7th year, yeah.
Well, welcome, Krista.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for coming down. So, Jan, maybe tell us a little bit about yourself and how long you've been superintendent of schools in Old Saybrook.
Oh, sure. Be happy to. I'm in my 36th year in education.
Okay.
I'm in my 11th year as the superintendent in Old Saybrook. My best job yet.
Okay.
And I'm actually retiring this year.
I heard that.
Yeah, so it'll be 11 and that's about it. But
Okay.
Loved it. Loved most minutes of it. Could have done without COVID, but
Right.
I loved most minutes of it.
There you go.
Yeah. Been good.
Yeah?
Yeah, and I kind of came up through the ranks. I was a teacher. I was an assistant principal, assistant superintendent. I kind of touched all the bases and enjoyed my career. I love working with kids. I love working with teachers. Smart people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Krista, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I actually started as an elementary school teacher and ended up becoming a middle school science teacher, which I loved and I thought was the best job in the world until I became an assistant principal in Farmington and then moved on to principal of Old Saybrook Middle School about 7 years ago. And I love every day that I go to work. It's an amazing place to be. It's a great community, great kids, great family. So I feel very lucky to be there.
And I'm sure not every day is a different type of day because you never know what you're getting yourself into.
That is very true. You have no idea.
And I'm sure with you, Jen, you have no idea what you're going to show up every day.
Well, I have a list of things to do, and then I usually don't get any of those done. I do everything else that hits the desk, right? But actually, I think the school principal job is much more unpredictable. My day, I can control it a little bit more unless something crops up.
Or is that what Trent's for?
That's what Trent's for.
There you go.
Trent's at the front door for that. But but Krista and the building folks, they're constantly being interrupted by things going on. There's a lot of moving parts in their buildings, and so they're always really busy.
Now let's talk about the changes in district leadership.
Yeah. So we just had an election.
Right.
Most places did.
Yeah.
And so in the town of Old Saybrook, there's some changes. We're going to have one change on the Board of Education.
Okay.
And in the last year, we've had a change of our second in command on both the student services side, so special education, and also on the curriculum side. So Amity Goss and Kathy Bai left us. Kathy retired. Amity moved on to an assistant superintendency. And we have two new folks in those positions. One will be a year in January, and that's Dr. Curry Fletcher. And another one, the student services person, will be a year in April, and that's Sarah Smalley. She had been a student services person elsewhere. So there's this transition in central office, and now our director of operations, facilities, and finance is retiring. She and I are about the same age. And then I'll be going out after her. So lots and lots of transition. But the good news is the building folks are pretty stable, 7 years, 10 years. Our elementary school principal's been there a very long time. So there's still stability in the leadership. And the Board of Education has already hired an executive search firm to help them find the very best candidates for the superintendent of schools. And I know that process will be ongoing. Candidates will be sending in their applications, I guess, up until January, and then they'll start that very elaborate, very protracted kind of process of interviewing candidates and getting the best possible person.
Krista, you have something you'd like to add?
I would just say that I think that our leadership team that we have in place is very strong, so it will be a transition, but we have a strategic plan that guides the work that we're working towards over the 5-year period. So this is actually year 3 of our strategic plan.
Okay.
And I believe right now all of our school goals and even the teacher goals are aligned to that strategic plan. So I believe that the work that we're doing will continue to move forward even though our superintendent and some other folks at central office are in transition period.
Now, can you maybe tell us a little bit about the strategic plan and maybe what it entails?
Sure.
You want to start?
Sure. So the strategic plan was developed by stakeholders from the community. And it really outlines the goals for the district for the next 5 years and where we want to head. And our strategic plan currently has 3 main goals that we're working on, one being high quality instruction, one being equity for all students to make sure that they have equal opportunities and access to the educational process, as well as student well-being and making sure that we're meeting not just the academic needs of our students, but the social and emotional needs of them as well.
And that one actually extends, that last one actually extends to our staff as well. One thing we did learn during COVID is you have to pay attention to the health and well-being of your staff as well as your students. I mean, that message was really driven home. And we've really focused on that, or trying to focus on that in a meaningful way. Yeah. And these goals, these big overarching goals, those are really like my goals and the Board of Education goals. They then kind of think of nesting dolls, right?
Okay, sure.
Right?
Yeah.
They kind of trickle down into the building, and everybody's goals align to them.
Okay.
And that's why what Krista says, I truly believe is true. The administrators are there going to be able to carry this on, even through the transition, because we are aligned. We're a lockstep. And we meet as an administrative team so frequently to make sure we know what's going on in each building and try to make it as similar as possible.
Okay. Krista, can you maybe tell us a little bit about your school?
Sure. So our school is a 5-8 school. We have about 300, and I think we're around 330 right now, 320 to 330 students.
Okay.
And we have kids are on teams, so because it's a middle school, we want to make sure that we have a support structure in place for the students as they move throughout the building. Our 5-6 side of the school is really more of an elementary model where students have a longer ELA and math period in the day, and once they get to the 7-8 side of the school, it's set up more like a traditional middle school where they go to each class for an equal amount of time, including their world languages, their specials, and so forth. Some unique things about our school that we have in place is a lot of connections with our community.
Okay.
One of the things that recently was put in place in our grade 5 math teachers have created a Main Street math program where they take the students out into the community and they meet with local business leaders, and the business leaders talk about how math is used in their businesses. And then the students, throughout the year, all of the math that they do in their classroom connects back to a business that they are creating for their own Main Street, which will be showcased at the end of the year, and the community gets to come in and see all the work that they've done, which really helps sets purpose for the students' learning. We have a variety of opportunities throughout the grades for students to have those interactions with our community and learn not just the academic pieces, but the 21st century skills as well.
Very cool. That sounds like a very neat program.
Yeah, I think that anybody who hasn't been in a public school, particularly, I'm really fascinated by the middle school. I won't say when I was teaching I was fascinated by the middle school because I was a high school person, but I'm really fascinated by the middle school because there is so much hands-on work being done. And there's local history classes where kids go out and they bring metal detectors out and look for artifacts, and then they work with the Historical Society to identify things. There is just a whole lot of engagement in the community. I think that's been growing, and I think that's been based on teacher and student interest. And I think that our students have a really great experience. Those are tough years. Grades 5 through 8 are tough years. I think we can all remember back to that. And so having these types of classes to engage students it's really, really important.
And it was very, I'm assuming during COVID it was no fun in the school, in the building.
It was very different because of the restrictions and things we had to put in place to make sure that we kept our students safe. It did change the dynamic of the classroom quite a bit and pulled us away from a lot of the teaching methods that we felt were most important because we just physically couldn't have them close together. But now we've been able to rekindle that joy in learning and focus on collaboration and having students have connections with folks in the community and with each other. So it's been really great to be able to come back to that post-COVID.
Now, as far as, I'm assuming right now you guys are getting ready to start preparing for the budget.
Oh yeah, we've started.
Process.
Yeah, we actually start close to the end of September on budget work. It's a full year. Budget never really ends.
No,
it keeps going. And so at the end of September, I asked the director of operations to create what I call the sustained services budget, where I say to her, if we open up our doors next year and do everything exactly the same, don't make any changes, accommodations, try to save money, build new programs, what will it cost us? And so that work gets done in September.
Okay.
And meanwhile, the principals and the directors are out there working with their folks to try to develop their building-based budgets and to anticipate needs based on what they know is going on. And of course, then we always have the fun of having state mandates and legislation just sort of dropped in on top of us. And there's always a cost to that. And then the ongoing fixed costs like insurance and oil, utilities, benefits, salaries, those things can all be sort of pre-done before we actually get into digging through the budget itself and deciding what are the programs that we need to offer our students in the coming year, what are our students' needs. And that's the part that we're working on right now, the programs in the building, what are our students' needs, and that gets tied to the strategic plan all the time. We look at everything through the lens of our goals. So our 3 goals that Krista was talking about earlier, those really drive the resources that we organize, that we ask for rather. If it doesn't move one of those forward, it's probably not going to get into the budget. And I think that that's a responsible way to approach budgeting, because it's not a one-year budget. You're thinking of it in terms of 3 and 5 years, right, even though you're asking for 1 year at a time. Plus, it's sort of a promise to the taxpayers, we're going to use the money the way we said we were going to use it. We told you this is what we're doing, these are our goals, and so we're going to use our money to move those goals forward. We try to be good stewards of taxpayer dollars.
And Krista, how's your budget looking for your building?
Well, it's complete, which is a big positive.
That's a good thing.
I would say exactly the same. We start with a zero-based budget, so we try to identify where the needs are in the building based on our strategic plan. We have discussions with the teachers and the teacher leaders to make sure that the items that we're requesting are responsible items and are going to move our plan forward, and students will be able to succeed academically from those purchases. So with that, I feel like we're in a really good place, and I think we've identified what we need, and that's all based off of the strategic plan.
All right, would you guys mind sticking around for another segment?
Not at all, love to.
All right, we'll be right back.
Think twice before buying from certain social media ads. Products that claim to support charity may be a cover for a scam. BBB Scam Tracker has received numerous reports from consumers who never received their merchandise. And if it's a free trial offer you're interested in, be sure to read the fine print. Consumers report that once they agree to the terms and conditions of these offers, they realize they're on the hook for multiple monthly shipments of products. And be wary of name brand or designer goods offered at too good to be true prices. They're prime targets for counterfeit merchandise. Visit bbb.org/scam-tracker to report a scam.
Welcome back to this week's edition of the Pete Mezzetti Show. I'm Pete Mezzetti, sitting here with Krista and Jennifer, who are with the Town of Old Saybrook Board of Education. Welcome back, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, Krista, I know we were talking a little bit about, in the first segment, just a general overview of the town and the budget and the school system. And Jan, we were talking about the budget and you're retiring. So what do we want to open up this segment talking about? Ladies' choice.
Ladies' choice. Well, we are really, we wanted to highlight some of the innovative practices going on in our district. One of the things that we've been building over the last 5 years, and we really didn't let COVID interrupt this, is preschool for our 4-year-olds. Okay. So we were able to accept, we used to have a tuition for our students, our 4-year-olds in preschool, and it was actually a revenue maker for the district. But because the board and we felt that preschool education is so important, and we wanted to make sure that money was not an issue for people, that they could send their children to school at 4 years old, right, even if money was a problem. We now have a preschool program for 4-year-olds in our district. All but 3 got in originally this year, and then we were able to find space for those, although some had already found other places. And even 3-year-olds, not all, but 3-year-olds are getting into that program too. So it's an additional year and a half, 2 years for students where they're in our schools developing their skill, developing their school know-how.
Okay.
And while that's sort of a long-term payoff, there's an awful lot of research that tells you that really good, high-quality preschool programs have a huge effect on whether or not someone goes to college, whether or not someone is successful. It has a huge impact on the prison pipeline in larger districts where students, it's hard to kind of grab them all up and get them into the schools. So there is a lot of good reason to do this sort of preschool programming, and I'm so proud of Old Saybrook for stepping up and doing it. Krista can talk about the middle school for sure.
So some of the programs recently that we've put in place at the middle school, again, making those connections with the community, but the idea behind them is to help students learn those 21st century skills, those skills that they're going to need in life. So not just the content and the academic piece that they would typically learn in school, but how do you think critically? How do you analyze information? How do you be creative and innovative, all of those pieces and those interpersonal skills that they need to be able to be successful, not just in school, but in their lives. So we've tried to integrate those into programs that connect with their studies here in the middle school. One of the classes that they've recently come up with, I can't say I'm taking ownership for it by any means, but just trying to provide the environment for that kind of innovation to occur. We had some 8th grade teachers come up with a program called Old Saybrook Studies, and in that program the students basically do like a mini capstone project.
Okay.
That they investigate something that's interesting to them and personalized to them, and they have to research that, they have to make connections to the community. The historical piece with the metal detectors that Jan was just talking about came from that class. Students then showcase what they've learned through a variety of ways. We have actually a museum in the school that has to do with Old Saybrook and things that they've found, things that they've researched. They've researched the cemetery down the street and found out about folks that lived in the cemetery and lived in town in the past. They have researched bones that they've discovered on property. They have they've created artwork, photography, murals, so forth, to show what they've learned about their town. So not only do they learn those skills and they learn about their community, but I think it helps build pride in their community as well.
Okay.
Another really successful innovation we've had is our summer enrichment program.
Okay.
So during COVID, the state was really asking districts, and they were actually providing funds for it, to provide additional education for students in the summer because there had been such a deficit in their learning experiences. So we did that, and it turned out to be such a success, we've kept it going. And so in the summer, there are a variety of enrichment courses, and they're wonderful opportunities for students to study something they wouldn't normally study. And this is little ones all the way up through seniors.
Cool.
And it allows teachers to try new innovative methods of teaching without a whole lot of pressure about having to cover a specific curriculum.
Right.
So it's such a creative outlet, I think, for both teachers and students.
Absolutely.
And I think both really enjoy it. We've done some professional development for teachers in order to prepare them for that. And we've done some things like learning Spanish and working in a garden. That's one class, you know. We've done some really creative, you know, taking math or taking science and applying it. And because you have the time and the luxury to do that in the summer, it really is powerful, and feedback is fantastic on it. And of course at the high school, you know, the sky's the limit. Everything sort of blends at the high school. Extracurricular and curricular programs kind of blend, like the show that we just had last week. You know, that there's some of that happens during the day, and there's some of that happens after school. Great show, by the way.
Yeah.
And we have our career programs. We have our capstone programs, and these are powerful. They're involved student voice. They're very student-centered. And I want to say some of these ideas did come from the kids themselves. Okay. Not only the process of just chatting with them casually, but also I do senior exit interviews with all the seniors who are leaving us, and I tell them, any senior who wants to meet with me, and I tell them this is because you're the only people in the district who have been pre-K through 12 here. So tell us what your experiences were before we lose you to the big world,
Right.
because we want to know. And they told us things about our programs that have really helped us modify what we do.
Now, what is the Capstone program?
So Capstone is an opportunity for students to explore something of interest to them. That is sort of a culminating project. Think of it as like a master's thesis, you know,
Okay.
or even a small version of a doctoral thesis, not necessarily with the research, but you know, it's an opportunity for students to take what they've learned in classrooms, where their interests lie, and maybe even what they've done in internships or job shadows or in their personal lives. And they create a project, a program out of it. And we then showcase those capstone projects. And students get an opportunity to tell us what they learned and what they're doing with it. It's just an exploratory is really what it is. It's an opportunity to explore an interest using skills learned both in and out of school. They are often really powerful experiences. We've had people present artwork, you know, put up an art gallery. We've had people talk about learning, you know, how to do construction. We've had people go into the cemeteries and take care of grave sites, like of our veterans or other folks. I'm hitting just very cursory way on the kinds of things they do, but really it's open to all kinds of interpretation. And there's a kind of a mini version of that in 8th grade too, so they get ready for it. It's kind of a repeat of it.
Yes, and those often, again, often incorporate community connections. We had students that were interested in finance, so we had a former student come back and talk to the students about finance, and then the students went home and talked to their parents about wanting to invest.
There you go.
They wanted to learn how to write resumes after talking to one of the local business owners and how to do that, so they worked with their teachers to create their own resumes in middle school already. So they're learning a lot of skills that go beyond the classroom skills.
Wow, it sounds like a very cool program.
Yeah.
And the students enjoy it.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, and it's about, I mean, I'd say we really are emphasizing student voice. We could do better. We're not perfect. We certainly don't want to say that, but we really try wherever we can to let students lead things. Perfect example was the Veterans Day Assembly, right? We had a Veterans Day Assembly on Friday. And the vets come in, and it's awesome because, you know, some of them are in their uniforms. It's just so wonderful. It's pretty much student run. I mean, adults help them organize it, but the students do all the presentations. And then, of course, we had a graduate who's a cadet at the Coast Guard Academy, Alyssa Parker,
Okay.
come back and be the MC for it. And this was all organized by Matt Walton at the middle school, the associate principal there. Just fantastic, really powerful. And the kids sing the national anthem, and they play music, and then we go out to the green and do the same event there. So many students involved in that. And you don't see a lot of the adults, which is really nice.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty powerful. I think the veterans really appreciate the kids working with them directly.
I think it empowers our students too to be able to take that ownership over the work that's being done. Gives them agency.
Now we've got some more time left, so what else do we want to get out there into the public about the school and what's going on?
Well, still on a happy note, our boys soccer team will be in the semifinals Wednesday. Was it Wednesday, I think? Against Holy Cross
Okay.
in Milford.
Okay.
Yeah.
Neutral site.
Yeah. What'd you say?
Neutral site.
Neutral site, right. Yeah, it'll be a neutral site. And hopefully, if they win there, they'll go on to the championship. I saw the game on Saturday. It was a nail biter.
Was it?
Yeah, it was very exciting that nobody scored until about 4 minutes left and ended up on a 1-0, so it was fantastic. But I think I also wanted to talk about, oh my gosh, I just lost my train of thought. I wanted to talk about how we are dealing with mandates.
Yeah.
So there's the new reading mandate, the science of reading.
Okay.
And that's sort of a wave in education that is rolling across the nation. And there's some good logic to making sure that whatever reading programs we're using to teach kids how to read, because teaching kids how to read really is rocket science. It is not an easy thing. It doesn't just happen by magic.
Oh, no?
And so people, kindergarten, first grade, second grade, yeah, right. These teachers really need to know what they're doing when it comes to reading instruction. So the science of reading is about the types of programs that we are supposed to be implementing that really have all the components of reading.
Okay.
Which is great. We are, though, being asked to implement certain programs, and so we're sort of in the state is making that request, and they've approved some that we can use. They weren't any that we were using in their entirety,
Right.
And so we're in the process of sort of making that transition as well. We have 10 teachers working with that this year, and we're looking at a full implementation next year. We're trying to get feedback from the teachers to let us know how it's going, where the strengths are, where the weaknesses are, how we can shore it up. It's never a dull moment in education. Just when you think you have everything mastered, you get new students and you get new programs and you start all over again. And so that's something that we're working on, dealing with, and there's budgetary issues there too, but the teachers seem to be managing it, moving it forward, and soon we'll be getting some feedback from them on how that's going. We've just started to, as I said, we talked about the budget, but also we started to look at, some of the assessments that we did last year and how our kids are doing, where our strengths lie, because that will inform the budget as well. We have to look at that data before we can actually finalize the budget. That's keeping us busy. Tomorrow night we have a board meeting, and we know we have a couple of trips coming up. There's some kids going to Quebec.
Okay.
Yeah, which is and that's really great, Pete, because now we're back to those field trips. We're back to those experiences that they're not just fluffy experiences. They're very, very important. So these are students learning French and others going on this trip, having a real experience in Quebec. And I, as much as it makes people nervous when we take students out of the country, it's just so important. I think it's such a good experience. And to be done safely with a group of people, and people who can chaperone and know the community, know Quebec. I mean, I think the French teacher is going, has been there so many times. So we're back to that, and that had all gone away during COVID. It was all backburnered, and we weren't sure how or if it was going to come back. And I think as miserable as the whole COVID experience was for us, and we escaped a lot of it. We were only closed March, April, May, and the first part of June, and we reopened in the fall. We learned so much about what is essential to education, what cannot be done online, what doesn't go well online, especially for little ones. Who really don't sit in front of screens very well, which is a good thing. And we took the best of that time. We now use our Google Classrooms. We now do Zoom meetings instead of having to all gather in a room. But actual instruction for public school kids, it really needs, I think, to be happening a lot in person. Not exclusively, but a lot. Exactly. And I don't know, Krista, if you want to add to that, but I think that what we learned there was powerful.
Actually, we're going to have to hold that thought because we're out of time.
We are.
We are. So I want to thank you guys both for coming down. Hopefully we'll see you again soon.
We'll be back.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Krista. Thanks, Jen. On behalf of Krista and Jan, I'm Pete Mezzetti. Thanks. Good night. We'll see you next time.